Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel, and today I would like to have an interview with my friend Alex. But Alex is more commonly known as Puddha in the CEDH community over Discord, and he is the player that got second at the Cash Cards Unlimited event for Black Lotus. So, how you doing today, Alex?
Not too bad, not too bad. Just finished up another tournament here locally.
And you're pretty much locked for top 4 in this one.
Yep, I'd say so.
Alright, so, first of all, how did you get into playing CEDH?
Well, so initially I was traveling for. I've been playing Magic for quite some time, just like modern stuff with friends. And then my buddy sold all his modern decks. Like I'm playing Commander, so I made the switch. But then I started traveling for work, and I can only play on cockatrice with people I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I was really tired of getting into pods with like a mismatched power level. You know, either my deck was too strong or not strong enough. And the games were no fun. So I learned about this competitive aspect where I'd already played competitive modern, so it was nice because you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
So I can get into any random CDH pod, and I knew everyone in that pod had the same understanding of power level. They wanted to try to win high level, and so it made games more even and more fun.
It's kind of nice that everyone's on the same page, right?
Yeah.
I had kind of the same kind of thing happen for how I got into CEDH. I was playing Casual Commander with Captain Sisay, which was the first Magic card I ever bought. But everyone's like, this is too good, don't play it. And that was before I even had Paradox Engine or anything. But then I was like, all right, I'm just going to reserve it for higher power games. I threw in Paradox Engine, and then from doing that, I found out about CEDH, and then I got into that. Next question. After getting into CEDH, what are like some of the tournaments that you played in? Like, what are your best results before playing in the Cash Cards Unlimited events?
So initially I did some local tournaments, which I didn't do super good at, and then I was in the CDH Discord League for a bit, which actually, I mean, there was no prizes, but I did pretty good there. I finished the first one season back when Flash was still legal, so games were much easier to win. And then I kind of like stopped going to tournaments, and then I moved to Portland, and the friend group I got into, yourself included, so we're going to tournaments. And they convinced me to go to the Marchesa tournament up in Seattle, Bellevue.
It was in Bellevue, yeah. Bellevue, Washington,
yeah. And at the time, right before it, I was playing Alanis, and then my buddy showed me Minx, and I used to be a Hold player, so I built Minx for Marchesa. I did pretty well. I went undefeated round day one. Granted, it was 2 wins, 3 draws, but undefeated nonetheless.
Yeah, no losses. That counts, right? That counts.
And then I made top 16 and got staxed to heck by
Charles,
by
right?
Charles
the Mono
guy. Yep. Which I'm sure many people have experienced that. So I finished top 16, no prizes there for top 16. And then we went to, there was a TCG con that Clubhouse was throwing.
Notably, it was also hosted by Koibito, who won Marchesa 2022.
Yes, who is also a Portland player.
Yep.
Got top 4 there, yourself included, right? You were top 4.
It was you, Phyrexian Tutor, who was also in the Marchesa top 4, Legend Kyle, who was also in the Marchesa top 4, and then me rounding it out at 4th.
Yep. Prize pool was only for first place, so Legend Kyle got his Underground Sea, and we got to see it.
If Phyrexian Tutor had just not tapped his only blue mana to hold open Swan Song, I was going to win on turn 3.
I think we all had win attempts. I had a win attempt, got stopped, and Kyle had a win attempt. You had it. So it was a pretty good game. And then there's some local ones we do here at an LGS that I've won a couple times and placed top 4 pretty often. But it's just local little meta. Nothing like super high prize worth, but still fun. We have a lot of good players here in Portland, so it's really nice. I mean, Koibito, Ryan comes out to this tournament quite often. And then I wasn't going to go to anything, and then I saw the announcement for CCU, and I wasn't going to go. My friends live in California, and my other buddy is like, if you go, I'll go. So we were like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, you're talking about Ozzy, right?
Yeah.
Ozzy was like, if you go, I'll go.
Yeah, it's underrated. Yeah, he was at Marchesa as well.
Yep. Ozzy also made top 16 in the CCU event as well.
And so CCU was good. I ended up finishing second. I got a Time Twister. And some other stuff. I got an Ikoria Collector's Booster and a Sliver Queen Slab. Do you want me to talk about the tournament at all? Like, as far as, like, matches and whatnot?
Yeah, so, like, it's definitely really impressive that you won that much stuff for getting second in an event.
Yeah.
And like, I think we've been setting some records here in Portland for like the most people have won at CDH tournaments, because like back in 2021 last year, I won a $730 tropical island. Then Legend Kyle that we had mentioned in TCG Con, he got an $840 underground seat.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come like screaming into first by a massive margin, winning a fucking time twister and
Yeah.
the case of collector boosters and the Slipper Queen slab. So like, obviously you got second in that tournament, but what was the commander deck that you played for that event?
So I played Rocco.
Mhm.
I'm sure most of you know it. I had switched off of Minx to play Rocco because I don't know. I think it's a little bit more resilient. I was on a Staxy version of Minx, and I went to 3 draws in my first 3 rounds at Marchesa, and I was like, I can't do this. So I took out all the stacks from the deck, and I built Rocco. And it's the Turbo Pod version. And big shout out to DMAC and Duvis, who pretty much designed the shell of, I think right now I'm like 2 cards different from their database list. It used to be 3, but I convinced them to play Skyclave after how well it did at CCU.
Skyclave is so good.
But I'm also on Endurance and Survival, which they're currently not. They have their reasons. I don't agree with them, but yeah. So it's a turbo deck. It's designed to cast Rocco for 4, getting Academy Rector or Arena Rector, killing it, and then getting Vivian of the Hunt and body off. And so it's designed to try to do that as soon as possible. And it went pretty well. The first 2 games at CCU were both turn 3 wins. One I could have had turn 2, but I had to use my kill spell to stop an old Stick Fingers from going off. I had to kill his Necrotic Ooze. So luckily I drew into another kill spell and was able to go off turn 3. I lost the next 2 games. I went for it on round 3. I went for it early, but the Yuriko player flashed in an op agent. We fought over it. It finally didn't go, but I was tapped out. And the Teferi player, who actually won the tournament, was in that pod. He won on his very next turn. And then won 1 more game throughout the course of the last few rounds. It was actually another turn 3.
Were there 5 or 6 rounds in total?
There's 5 rounds. 6 rounds. There's 6 rounds. I went 3 and 3 opening first 2 days. And then we went into top 16. My semifinals match was grueling. It was Winota. I don't remember what the other 2 was. It was some farm iterations. I could probably look it up. But Winota was going off, and I actually had a protected win that I didn't see. There was a rule on play, and I had a protected win, and I had Nature's Claim, and I had Ranger Captain, and I didn't see it at first. So I cast my Wirewood first, and then I saw it, and then I was like, oh man, I had the win, but I couldn't remove the rule of law anymore because I already cast the Wirewood. So I pretty much spent like the rest of the game like
trying to recover from that
sulking
mistake.
about that. And watching Winota just keep going and off, and like it was pretty much a joint effort between the last player, because the 4th player Winota just punched out of the game, so it was 3 people for a while, and it was getting to the point where I had Tiki out with Skyclave and like copying Skyclave every turn Winota came out, just to survive. And we finally did, and I got I went infinite with Dockside Teamer, which is the backup lines in this deck, and then made it to top 4, and then the Teferi player just wrecked the pod.
I remember I sent you a direct message, and I was like, please, Alex, don't let Teferi win this. Like, this would be an embarrassment for everybody here. Don't let this happen. But
yeah,
it seems like his hand was just way too good to beat.
I probably could have mulled a little bit more aggressively, but I would have had to have like the perfect hand to stand a chance, because that turned 2 back to basics. Like all my ramp would have had to have been artifacts, which. Yeah, so it was fun. Teferi player definitely. He played well. I mean, he was first place. Like he was top seed going into top 16 and stayed in there. So I mean, he definitely played a good tournament. He deserved to win. I mean, his deck was smacked us around. Like I don't even think I wouldn't even count last one as a game for the rest of us. It was just us watching him play. But it was nice to see. And because of my seeding, I was second of the 4 left, so like I was guaranteed if he won, I was guaranteed a time twister, so like I wasn't upset watching him go off because I was
Yep.
like,
I get like 7K in prizes or something
Yeah,
like that. Like,
so-
that's pretty good.
so I couldn't complain.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a really fun tournament. I love the guys at Monarch. There was definitely some hiccups because of the Squire bot.
Yep.
But you know, it happens. I think overall it went fairly smoothly. There were some delays, but you can't fault anyone for that. But you know, I mean, those guys are super sweet. They're super nice.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you play Rocco as the Turbo Pod version.
Mhm.
And obviously there's a lot of versions of Rocco running around where there's Turbo Pod version, there's food chain versions, there's stacks versions. What is the reason you decided to go with the Turbo Pod version of Rocco over any others?
So I realized that I'm not a good stacks player. So like I tried to pull in stacks version of Rocco and I just didn't win at all. And I wanted to go turbo, and while food chain has its advantages, I think it's a little slower because your ramp has to come from dorks to be able to have food chain as fodder.
In order to feed the food chain, yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a mid-range version too, which I think mid-range is great for food chain. But the turbo, I think, pod is better because then all your ramp can come from artifacts, and you don't have to worry about like sacking stuff to food chain because you're just going for Vivian. And you know, Rocco pods into Felidar and starts the chain. So really, you're looking for Rocco at X equals 4 plus a kill spell, which I think I run like over 10. It's like somewhere between 10 and 12 ways to kill Rector in the deck. So it's literally just, I'm going to shit out Ramp, Rocco, and a kill spell. And
That seems like a fairly simple mulligan plan.
And there's a lot of kill spells that you can't interact with, like high markets in there, kill spells that are like sacks additional cost. So like if you don't have a creature counter, and like really that early, like people probably don't have room for like mana to pay for pact negation. So like I'm looking for force of will for free interaction, and so like the odds of like, especially when you're going off turn 2, I've had a lot of turn 2 wins, and like I'm not worried about. I mean, someone could have a force, but that's all I'm worried about. So that's why I went with this version. And it's a toolbox. Like I have, like I can tutor for Skyclave, I can tutor for endurance, I can tutor for all these things to stop other people's wins. So like the tutor in the command zone is what really drew me in from Minx, and then this version I think is just the quickest. And like I said, probably tying 3 times at Marchesa for the first 3 rounds and having 6 grueling hours for 3 points. Really made me not want to play.
It's a whole lot to grow through.
I found out like after 3 rounds, my buddy who had 1 bye was ahead of me in standings after me grueling for 6 hours getting 3 buys or 3 draws. So that really had a huge factor in me just moving away from stacks.
So, do you have any other decks that you're currently working on or trying to experiment with?
I mean, I still have my Minx. My Minx deck. I've always had my Lanius deck. Today I actually played Dargo Sidar, yet another Naya deck.
And that was one of the decks that made top 16 in the CCU event, right?
Which is like, I had never really seen Dargo go off. Like, I saw 2 players on Dargo, and I was watching them storm off with like Greater Good or something. And I never, like, I'd seen Dargo, I'd never seen it do its thing, and I was like, that's really cool, I want to try it out. And I'm tired of losing to Opagent, so having a deck that...
You don't have to tell me again.
Having a deck that draws a bunch of cards versus tutoring for cards felt nice in our meta, because, like, people in our meta definitely know our decks, so, like, if you don't bring a new deck every now and then, like, they just know what you're going to do, so it's nice having a game plan. And then I think I have Armix Gracias, but I don't play that often. That's probably all I have.
Gotcha. So, is there anything about CEDH specifically that you like more than anything else? Like, I remember you mentioned earlier that you just like that everyone's on the same page trying to accomplish the same kinds of goals. So, what do you like about CEDH as a format?
I enjoy the competitive aspect of it. Like I said, I played competitive Modern. I mean, any game I get into, I look for a competitive aspect of it. And so that is, you know, that CDH is a competitive version of EDH. And all my friends switched to EDH, so that's why I made the switch. And the power level being the same, getting to go and do some tournaments and win some prizes is nice if you do well. I've definitely scrubbed out many tournaments. I think we all have, but yeah, I just really like that everyone is sitting down to a table with the same expectation. Like, I'm trying to win. I'm trying to stop you from winning. Like, even when we're playing for fun, it's still like that has that competitive aspect of it where everyone's trying to play their best, and that makes you a better player too. Like the year I spent playing CDH on Cockatrice, like I learned so much about the stack, different interactions, which I didn't really know if I would have been just playing casual. Because like there's not really a lot of interaction and stacks building. Like there's some crazy stacks. I mean, even today, I've had some like huge stacks of interaction, and I think it makes the game more fun and it makes you a better player as well. So that's probably what I'd say.
So I know before the CCU tournament that you were spending a lot of time figuring out like puzzles to combo off for Rocco.
Yeah.
That's like a lot of work and a lot of dedication that you put into that. How do you avoid things like burnout and fatigue if you're doing those kinds of puzzles in preparation for an event so much?
I mean, winning 7,500 definitely helped. if I'm being honest,
I can imagine.
But it was fun, like because like you get to like I've been like I said, DMAC and do this brewed the deck originally, and like DMAC was sending me puzzles, trying to figure out lines, and it made me understand the deck better. And then it found like new things to put in the deck and like different, how you get around certain stacks and things like that. So like I enjoy puzzles and riddles in general, and so I'm getting puzzles about my deck that ultimately gave me a better chance to do well at a big tournament. I didn't see any downside to like it, and I was bored at work, so like sitting there for an hour figuring out these complicated ass lines that he'd be like, all right, here's the board state, and like this is exiled, this is exiled, this is in play, like trying to like make it as difficult as possible, and like it really because like there's some lines where like they're not obvious at first, and I'm sure you can relate. Like, to say lines are complicated as fuck sometimes. Like trying
like
to
the one I just had in round 4 of having to worldly tutor for the exact right card and Summoner's Pact for this Korean Ranger, cast a Shaya, have this Concordant Crossroads in play, and
yeah. So
but some of your puzzles were way more complicated than that.
He was, and he'd send me one, and I'd find a different line than he wanted me to find. He's like, damn it. All right, this card's exiled. Try again.
Yep. He's trying to get you to find a specific answer, and they're like, oh, well, if I just find Treasonous Ogre, I win. Okay, no Treasonous Ogre. It's not allowed. It's not okay.
You're at 10 lives. Try again.
Yep.
So it was fun. Like I said, huge shout out to both those guys for like coming up with the original idea of the deck, or at least it's this version of it. I know like the moment it got spoiled, the Discord server was made instantly, and like I hopped in there. And
I know Michael Levine was like extremely excited about it.
Who also was at CCU, and he's on the Stacks version of Rocco, but his gripe was everyone was keeping super greedy hands, so his stacks just ended up helping other people win. So I think he's trying a more mid-rangey turbo-y list, but his stacks list is really good. Like he was the one I based my stacks version off of when I tried it, and it does the thing. I'm just not good at playing stacks, and I think that tournament, I think the pots he got into, it didn't work out for him. But he's a super cool dude for sure.
Michael's fun. So is there anything that you'd like to see maybe change in the format? Anything you'd like to see shaken up?
Aside from banning Op Agent and Rest in Peace.
Wait, what? Rest in Peace?
Karmic Guide.
But Rest in Peace isn't that common.
No, it's not. But definitely Op Agent. It's a hill I'll die on. It does too much for 3 mana. As a fellow tutoring in the command zone, you can relate. But I think we have some kinks to work out in tournament formatting and how to handle slow play and things like that. And like our buddies and I are testing out this theory where like everyone has their own turn timer.
Yeah, we've been playing with the
like a chess clock style. And your timer clicks when you have priority, and it's definitely got some wrinkles and things to work out. But it's it's just things like that. And
I feel like it's also a really good tool though for like if somebody passes priority, you have to manually pass priority, so you have to think about okay, where are we on the stack? What is the best time to do this? How do I make sure that I'm playing things quickly while I have priority, so that way I'm not eating up too much of my round time?
If it's not something we end up using at our tournaments, it's definitely something that's like helped me like understand the stack and like priority and all that, because there's so many places technically. If everyone passed priority appropriately in a Magic game,
it would take hours. It would take so long. Even a turn 3 win would still take like 60 minutes.
But I haven't I'm just not getting the tournaments, so like it's hard to say like what I change about like the structure and the format. Ban off agents.
I am okay with that.
And then I mean the community is really nice because everyone shares information and everyone's like helping each other. So like I don't sense a lot of toxic energy from like competitive CDH. I would opt to make tournaments, and I know this is a hot take, but more proxy friendly. I know Marchesa or Monarch is doing their part with doing
the playtest
with the playtest cards, so it's getting in that direction. There's a lot of LGSs and things that have no proxy, and then I mean you're just playing against someone's wallet. Like I mean my Rocco deck is close, but I had to borrow cards. Like I borrowed most of the reserveless cards from a friend.
You had to borrow like the Gaia's Cradle, and you had to borrow a Mox Diamond, I believe.
Yeah, I borrowed a Mox Diamond, a Cradle, the 3 duels, a Survival, and the Grim. I think that's it. 7 cards. But the deal was if he lets me take these cards, if I win something, I give him a prize. So he actually got this Sliver Clean slab that I got as a prize.
Nice.
So it worked out for him as well. Yeah, so I mean, like,
I was wondering what you did with that.
Yeah. No, that was me renting cards from Mike.
Yep.
Which is totally fair, because I mean, I took a lot of value of cards from him across the state.
Yep.
He didn't make me leave any collateral or anything, so
that's fair.
He could find me if he really wanted to. But I think that would be, the biggest thing is like make it more accessible, because I don't want to beat someone because I have more expensive cards than them. You know. When it's not always the case, there's some budget versions, but they're just not the same. You know, I mean, a budget version of Rocco would not be as good.
It would not be anywhere near as powerful.
No, and
because you miss out on so much of the early ramp that makes the fast Rocco wins possible.
Exactly, and so that's probably what the biggest thing I change is just having more people adopt and like where you draw the line. So like at Marchesa, it was $200 all the cards and up, and that's it.
With a couple exceptions,
Yeah. So like if you didn't have a Mana Crypt and you wanted to go to this tournament, you had to buy one. And like Mana Crypts are cheap, you know. Someone may not have $150, $200 for a Mana Crypt at the time, and they maybe don't want to play in their first tournament. And so, that's pretty much it. I don't know how to, it's definitely a hot topic and debated topic, and I get both sides of it, but that's just my stance on it.
Yeah. Well, that's all I wanted to ask you. Do you have any sort of closing thoughts?
Yeah, man. 2023 is the year Naya. No, I used to be a Simic player, but the last 3 decks I played were Naya. So like, just make a Naya deck. You don't need blue to win, right?
You don't need Thassa's Oracle.
You don't need black, and stop playing Off Agent. It's a bad card.
Yeah, just don't play it. It's not good in your deck.
Cool.
Well, thank you for coming on, my friend.
Man, thanks for having me.